Alright, today's video is going to be about Orc Captains. What to look for, what to avoid, and how to get the strongest War Chiefs and Overlords possible as quickly as possible. Before diving in though, I wanted to make it clear these are methods that revolve around legitimately playing the game. Right now there has been a cheat code revealed for PC in particular that will give unlimited currency, thus making it possible to just get unlimited orcs almost immediately for those who wish to go down that road. And I won't speak to the morality of using a cheat or the controversy surrounding the game's microtransaction model in general at the moment. Nor will I give a link to it or explain how to activate it, but I will say it's probably a pretty simple search and implementation if someone wanted to take advantage of that cheat and go down that road. I don't recommend it, you never know what the response may be, but it's out there specifically for PC. Also, if you want to further support the game and its greedy publisher by spending money on the microtransactions instead of the cheat code, that would indeed be a faster method of getting better orc captains, war chiefs, and commanders. But this tactic is free to play, no cheat method, and you can get the best orcs available fairly quickly. And there's no risk of getting banned in the future or anything like that. Just good old-fashioned gaming. The strategy is pretty simple, but setting yourself up best is a bit more complex. You want to find a champion's fight pit that you out-level by about 6 levels or more. This isn't 100% necessary. You can also do it using a champion's fight pit that is the same or even slightly higher level than you yourself and your orcs. But it's a lot easier and cleaner if you use one that's under your level by a pretty decent margin. Before starting to fight enemy orcs, you need to prep yourself up to have some killers and some sacrifices. Now, what I mean by this is that you should have quite a few, or at least a couple, of very strong captains with a diverse spread of strengths. So you can match them up and effectively eliminate captains that you don't want during the fights. And then also you should have some very weak, low-level captains that you will send in to die quickly against captains you wish to recruit, so that there's no risk of the one that you want in your army dying. Some side notes about your killer captain squad is that savages with dual axes or defender orcs with shields are often very effective at quick eliminations, so having a few of them with different weapons such as poison, curse, or fire is a really good base to start with. For your weaker orcs, it really does not matter, but archers and ranged attack orcs are often very quick to die, and they can be great to send in as cannon fodder, but stay away from shielded defender captains for this purpose, since they are kind of hard to kill at times, and you might get a surprise upset victory against an orc that you are looking to recruit in the future. So stay away from, defender shield orcs for the cannon fodder purpose. Once you have everything situated, it's time to start cycling through orcs. Also be aware that every fight will give a drop, regardless of who wins or loses, so deconstructing after a session can give you enough Mirian to buy quite a few chests from the marketplace or upgrades for your various citadels. It's also a really great way to earn Mirian, not just find the orcs that you want. For this next part, I'm going to time-lapse a bunch of different orcs and speak about them as they come up, whether good or bad and why. But the basic principles and the things to look for are lots of immunities, at least 4, I think is the golden number there. Less weaknesses, obviously, unless there's specific ones, but I'll get into more detail on that later. And I will provide a more complete list of the traits at the end of the video with yeses or nos, but, that's coming soon. Okay, let's do some trial runs and discuss the champions that come up. So what we have here is Zun the Swift. Now he's a 41, I can easily defeat him if I need to. If I recruit him, it'll be fairly easy to level him up. I can just throw him into a couple of fights of his own. He has a fear of pinning and a fear of brutality, but he doesn't have any mortal weaknesses. As you can see, the first 2 slots in the weaknesses category are grayed out, there's nothing there. And fears are not that bad. This isn't something you really have to stress out all that much about. Then if we go over to his strengths, we have 2 immunities, which is not near the 4. You do want 4 immunities, 5 if you can possibly get them. But 2 is not that bad. He's immune to curse and vigilant against stealth. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that as an overlord, stealth is not going to be a factor. So if I were looking for an overlord for one of my different fortresses, I wouldn't care about this guy because he essentially only has 1 immunity in that case, which is curse. Vigilant against stealth wouldn't matter at all. He's enraged by weakness, but that's probably not going to be a factor. Again, if I'm looking for a warlord, if I'm looking for a good war chief, then maybe that could work. Devoted master, he can become enraged when his pet or gang is killed. That's cool, but it's not really a game changer. And then over to his class traits. There's very few class traits that are going to make a meaningful difference. When we get one that has no chance, then I'll talk about that. But there's very few class traits. The thing to really look out for is immunities. This guy only has 2. He's not going to be all that useful. Call reinforcements is good if you are looking for a war chief as opposed to an overlord. Dying command, is okay, but really you're looking for those immunities. So this guy is a no-go. He has a gang of defenders, Iron Will, and Caravan Rider. So Iron Will is okay. It's something that's a boost, but really this guy is not that great, so we're just going to eliminate him. So we go and we select one of our top tier captain killers, and then we throw that captain killer into the match against him so that we can quickly eliminate him and get a new role. Okay, we eliminated the last champion, and now we're jumping back in to look at a new one. Let's discuss. We can see that he has a mortal weakness to stealth that pretty much takes him off the table completely, considering he has no immunities. He has 0 immunities, and he's mortally weak to stealth, which means he absolutely cannot be an overlord. He absolutely cannot be a war chief because he can be killed in one shot. And his vulnerability is beast fodder, as if we couldn't have a worse champion here. He has about 3 of the things going on that we absolutely don't want. So we're just going to really quickly select one of our attackers and wipe him out. Alright, next up we have this defender, and he has 3 immunities. He has arrowproof, fireproof, poisonproof, which really isn't horrible. 3 immunities is not 4, but it's something. And then he has nothing that will enrage him, though, which is pretty bad. You do want to have him, anything that he is not immune to, it's really good to have as an enrage factor. So let's say this guy does not have beastproof, but if he were to be lethally enraged by beasts whenever they were to be present, that's not as good as an immunity, but it's very, very strong. So he doesn't have any enrage factors. He has 3 immunities. For class traits, he has triple strike, which is very nice. A deadly 3-hit combo. That can be very good against players that are trying to attack your fortress. That can be very, very good in the fight pits to attack other orc captains. Fast learner is also quite good. Basically it'll turn him into something that is a vault breaker. A lot of players will dodge over defenders pretty frequently, so if they're constantly dodging over him, he will learn how to counter that. He'll adapt to that. So he's not a bad champion. He's not a horrible champion, but he's not a very good one. He's vulnerable to stealth. He won't be instantly killed by it. He's also beast fodder. So this discounts him from the overlord slot because he can be cheesed by a grog, as we've already talked about. Vulnerable to stealth kind of discounts him from the war chief slot. Perhaps he would be usable as someone to use as an attacker in the fight pits, but mostly this guy is another useless captain. We're not really going to care about him. We're just going to wipe him out. Okay, next up we have Grom the Champion. He has a fear of brutality, fear of curse, nothing really bad in the weakness category. He has no mortal weaknesses, nothing that he's overly weak to. He has, some fears, but those aren't going to really impact him in a huge way in most of the combat encounters. He's poison proof and beast proof, which is good as an overlord. Those are 2 things that you do want, but there's only 2 immunities. He's enraged by ghouls, but ghouls are not a very common thing. You're not going to see these very often. Very few players really summon these. At least I found myself hardly ever summoning them. He's enraged by them, though. That's not a bad thing. But really, he's not very strong. He's agile, which is okay, and he has no chance. Now, this is the moment to talk about no chance. This can catch a lot of players unawares. No chance is very, very good. It's one of the only things to really impact your decision on whether or not you want to use a captain in the class trait slot. Throwing knives doesn't really matter. None of the other things here matter, but no chance means it makes a difference. If an enemy goes down, they are instantly dead with no chance, as it suggests. So this guy could be war chief material. He really doesn't have any exploitable weaknesses that would make him an easy fight for enemy players. He does have poison proof. He does have beast proof. He can't be cheesed by grogs. This is something that you could consider getting and slotting into the war chief slot. I don't think that he's deserving of being an overlord, and as that is the most important slot in a defense mission. That's the most important battle when taking a keep. But he is deserving of being a war chief, I believe. And this is one of the times where, just for demonstrational purposes, I will show you're going to slot him against something that he can beat. This is why you have the weaker guys. I have a feral tracker here that's only level 28. This is why I have them. You're going to slot him against the enemy so that he can easily die. And then as soon as he is dead, I myself am going to run in and recruit the champion that I want in my army. Okay. Now that I've lost the fight. I won by losing the fight because I had the opportunity to recruit that captain. He is being attacked by Grog, so that's important that I do this quickly. There are a couple things that we need to keep an eye out for. When we go into our character sheet really fast, I am using a perk right now that is the Worse Than Death Shame perk. Now, I'll show you the quest chain it comes from. This perk, this skill perk, or augmentation, comes from the side missions that have to do with Bruise. When you get to the end of the Bruise quests, you'll unlock this. You shame Bruise, and you get access to the Worse Than Death Shaming perk for your skill. And let's go review it. And what this can do is it shames them by a greater amount. I don't need to shame this guy. I am already level 60, but a lot of players are going to need to shame the orc captain that wins the fight, especially because when they win the fight, they gain a few levels, which means you might have to shame them, reduce their level, and then go recruit them. If this doesn't apply to you, that's fine. If you're able to just simply recruit him right away, that's why I recommend fighting in a champion arena that is reduced below your level. That will allow you to immediately recruit him. But if you are fighting something that you do need to go shame, you have a choice. You can put on Worse Than Death, which could ruin the mind of your target and then make them deranged, which can ruin the champion. They can lose some of their positive perks. They can gain negative quirks or perks or traits or whatever you want to call them. They can become a worse champion, or there's a very small chance, but they can actually become stronger, creating a dangerous maniac, which can make something that already was quite strong that you wanted in your army even stronger. So this is a personal choice. I'm not going to influence anybody either way. You can farm for potentially maniacs by using this constantly, or you can ignore this. You can unslot this and then regularly shame them, or if you don't need to shame them at all, then you don't have to. In my case, I don't need to, but I want to make it very clear that there is a choice there. For me, I will simply jump down. I'll run in. I will get some damage. He's vigilant against stealth. I forgot about that. I'll just get as much damage as I can, as fast as I can, and then I will recruit him. All right, there we go. I now have Grom the champion. I can keep him, send him into my army, and then whenever I want to, I can grab him. I can have him fight a couple of, just to show really quickly, I can have him fight in the maggot fight pit, and then just level him up to the max potential level that he has based on my own level, because orcs do scale based on Talion's base level himself. So whenever I want to, I can get him up to 60, and he'll be a decent war chief for me to slot. Back in the fight pits, we have Flak Goldfang. So he doesn't have any weaknesses. That's very good. He has a fear of burning, but that's not going to be, wildly influential. If we go over here, he has 3 immunities. He has Frostproof, Beastproof, and Vigilant against Stealth. That's not bad. He could be War Chief material. He's enraged by Acrobatics, and this is something that happens quite often. If he sees... if he is vaulted over, I should say, if an enemy player, if he is a war chief or an overlord, vaults over him, which can happen a lot of times, even if the enemy player isn't even trying to, he will become enraged. And when they're enraged, enemy captains can be quite dangerous. So that is quite good. That is very, very good. Wave of Might right here unleashes a wave of strength so powerful that it pushes back and disorients nearby enemies. That does deal damage to players. That can be valuable. Determination is quite good. If you have him as an overlord, he will kneel down, you will use the determination talent, and sometimes players can't get to him because there are so many other ads or mobs in the room that are attacking them. So this can be good for an overlord. It can also be good for a war chief. It's not something that's going to by itself make you want this guy, but the combination of things going on, he's Karagor Rider, it doesn't really mean anything. All of the different factors, right? He has 3 immunities. He does have a good enrage factor. He does have a couple of okay class traits. He doesn't have the last chance trait, which is the most important class trait, but he does have determination and wave of might. Hail of bolts is also good. So he is something, again, he's not super weak. He is erring on the strong side. We can recruit him and make him a war chief. I don't think he's overlord material. Since we are going to attempt to recruit him, he is a 41. This is where I would use another one of my cannon fodder sacrificial orcs. I have a 27, Doug's the Glory Hunter. He's very weak. It doesn't really matter if he wins. I'm not passionate about this guy. If you are, very, very passionate about an orc and you don't want any chance of him losing, and you very much want to recruit him, then you can go find a super weak orc and then slot him in even weaker than 27, even though I think this is plenty of, a large enough cushion for sure. But you can take steps to ensure that you will lose that fight so you can then recruit him. But in this case, I don't really care, so I'm just going to let it run its course. And it's a good thing that I didn't care all that much, because my inferior guy, not superior, my vastly inferior orc with a much lower level ended up winning. So Flak Goldfang bites the dust, and we move on to the next one. You can take steps to make sure that you lose, but I didn't really care, so I just slotted a random guy in, hoping that I would lose, but it doesn't really matter. Next up, we have Gash the Grog Catcher. He is flammable and vulnerable to stealth. Flammable is not a very good one. Heavily damaged by fire can be quite bad. Vulnerable to stealth is not going to really make or break, especially if you're going for the Warlord or Overlord slot. For immunities, he has Arrowproof and Beastproof, which are two of the most important ones for immunities. So if he were to be in the Overlord slot, he has two of the very important ones. He's enraged by Morgai flies. That's really not going to be a factor most of the time. If I were to use him as a war chief, then he might come in contact with them. But this is kind of one of the dead stats. Morgai flies, whether it's a weakness or a strength, doesn't particularly mean anything. He has Bestial Roar. He calls Karagors to battle. That's pretty good if you want to match him up against another captain that has weakness to beasts, or beast fodder as a weakness. But he's really not something that I'm going to really care about. He does have Beast Slayer. That is something quite good for the bonuses. Beast Slayer means that he is going to pretty ruthlessly and immediately kill, whether it be a Grog or a Karagor or anything really that he comes up against. So Beast Slayer is something that can impact your decision, and push you over the edge from wanting a captain or not wanting a captain to the other side. But in this case, there's not enough really going for him. He's not bad, again, but I've grabbed a couple not bad captains already. So we're just going to use one of our bruisers and put him down. Okay, next up we have Mug Skin Chewer, and I'm going to try and power through quite a few of them really fast here with just the bullet points. He has Beast Slayer, he has Power Shot, Quick Shot, all of these are fine. Bestial Frenzy, that's quite good, especially paired with Beast Slayer, so he will effectively eliminate a beast and then become enraged. He has Arrowproof and Poisonproof, but that's not enough immunities. You really do want 4 or 5. For weaknesses, he is Beast Fodder, which really doesn't matter because he has Beast Slayer and the Enraged, so this effectively cancels out the Beast Fodder negative attribute here, but vulnerable to stealth. So he could be a War Chief, but in this case, I don't really need any more War Chiefs, so I'll just eliminate him and move to the next one. Next up is Nara the Enraged. He is vulnerable to stealth and Beast Fodder. Beast Fodder already discounts him from being an Overlord. He has immune to execution, which is very, very good, and immune to curse, but only 2 immunities. That's not quite enough. Enraged by Morgai flies, dead stat, because he's not ever going to come in contact with them. In very few situations will that happen. He is a savage, which is nice. The dual-wielding axe savages can eliminate enemies really quickly, but that's not enough by itself. So he's not going to matter. We're just going to put him down really quickly. Next up, we have another Berserker or Savage. He is terrified of Morgai flies, but that really wouldn't impact us if we were looking for an Overlord. Like I said, Morgai flies is pretty much a dead one. Soft target and Beast Fodder, though. Soft target, very, very bad. He can be spammed with ranged attacks, whether it be from a bow or a hammer or whatever it is. He can be spammed and killed very easily by the heavy damage from ranged attacks. So that immediately discounts him from being useful in any position. He is not going to be good for a Warlord, a War Chief, or an Overlord. Neither is going to be suitable for him. He does have a lot of other traits. He has a lot of class traits. I do like Flying Axes. I really do like Savages as a class, but this guy, not going to be useful. Only 1 immunity. It's Execution, which is good, but only 1 immunity, so he's done. Alright, next up we have another Savage. He's terrified of Grogs, which is something players can summon. So right there, we already know he's going to be bad. Beast Fodder as well. Very, very bad. Fear of Poison. Not great. He has 2 immunities. Immune to Curse, Vigilant against Stealth, so not enough to counteract that. Enraged by Weakness. Nothing very good there. Yeah, he's a pretty bad captain. We're just going to fight through him. Next up, we have Tars the Warrior. He is terrified of spiders, which is something that players can summon. So he's fireproof, immune to curses, enraged by Morgai flies. That's not very good. It's a dead enraged stat. Fireproof and immune to curse. They're good, but by themselves, not enough. His class traits can't make up for that. And terrified of spiders is a huge deal because players can actually summon spiders when they get to a certain point in the campaign. So he is an absolutely terrible captain. Okay, next up is a defender, which is sometimes a really good thing. The shield-using orcs can be very, very tough. We have poison-proof and frost-proof, and it's an interesting thing to talk about frost-proof because a lot of players unlock in the skill tree an ability to dodge over enemy orcs and leave them frozen. So frost is an important part of the toolkit of a lot of players. So specifically thinking from, an online attacking enemy players' fortresses perspective, Frostproof is very valuable as an immunity. He doesn't have arrow proof, he doesn't have execution proof, he doesn't have anything other than just poison and frost, but they are both quite good. He has nothing that enrages him. He's a destroyer, final blast, but if he's dead, then you've already lost, so final blast doesn't matter from a PvP perspective. Bombs and mines are cool, I really like them, but they're not going to impact my decision here. He doesn't have any mortal weaknesses, he doesn't have anything that will terrify him, but he has a fear of pinning, a fear of execution, and being dazed by an execution attack, since it does happen a lot of the time, is not that great. So this is not somebody we're going to find a lot of use from. Here we have another defender. He is a Karagor rider, and he's just terrible. He has 0 immunity, 0 enrage factors, and he's beast fodder, so nothing needs to be said. He's awful. So that's enough random orcs and just going through the thought process, but I wanted to review a couple that were on the right track rather than just being cannon fodder and not very good. This is one of my overlords right now. He's not ideal. He does have a fear of execution, which is pretty bad and will be used against him. He will be exploited for that fact, but fear of execution isn't as bad as some others, and he does have 4 immunities. He doesn't have any mortal weaknesses. He has nothing in the left 2 categories, so there's nothing that can instantly kill him. He's fireproof, immune to curse, frostproof, and beastproof. He can't be cheesed by grogs because he's immune. He can't be cheesed by the frozen frost effect that players can use and jump over him. He does have 4 immunities. That's right about the amount that you want. If you can get 5, that's really good. He's enraged by mortal wounds that will activate during the fight, so that's a really good perk to have. He's a trapper. He can lay down traps which will affect players in a wide open room where the fight takes a long time. These traps might come into effect. They might become valuable, and he has a gang of Ologs and a cursed weapon. Cursed weapon is great. Curse is very effective against other players, so he is worthy of being an overlord. He's not great, he's not perfect, but he's on the right track with 4 immunities and no mortal weaknesses. I also have this guy, Pug the Guardian. He is just a war chief, but he doesn't have any mortal weaknesses at all. Fear of Morgai flies and fear of Karagors. Now, fear of Karagors can be exploited. There's going to be a lot of Karagors potentially usable by players. They can summon them, they can ride them, they can summon more when they howl. But, it's not going to make or break the fight in one fell swoop. And he does have 5 immunities. Arrow-proof, fireproof, poison-proof, immune to curse, and frost-proof. He can't be cheesed by the frost mechanics. You can't even damage him with arrows, which means you also can't use shadow strikes. Arrow-proof is very important. And then he also has fire, poison, and immunity to curse. So he's going to be quite hard to kill. He's going to be a long fight. It's going to be something that you can't really cheese as well as some others. He can still be executed and deal damage that way. He can still be hurt with stealth, but there's a lot of things going for this guy, and he's a really good war chief. So 5 immunities and no mortal weaknesses is very, very good to have. Another guy that's on the right track is this Amug Eye Gouger dude right here with the fire weapon. Now, he does have 4 immunities: Arrow-proof, Frost-proof, Immune to Curse, and Beast-proof. And these are 3 of the best ones. Arrow-proof, Frost-proof, and Beast-proof means that there's very little that anyone can do to cheese this fight. They are going to have to get up close. They are going to have to actually fight him. He does have a shield. He's going to, be a heck of an enemy to fight. He becomes enraged at the sight of a Shadow Strike, which is another thing that is cut down in the enemy's arsenal. If an enemy player is attacking this guy in the throne room, they're not going to be able to Shadow Strike around with the unlimited elf shot that's available, because he will become enraged, and that will make him a lot more dangerous. He also has Sappers, which are living bombs. They can blow up. This is a really good talent. If you are going to summon allies to your aid, this can be quite strong. If he pulls these in, they can blow up and they can instantly kill an attacking player. Final Inferno doesn't matter because he'll be dead. Terror chains, long chains, which means he's not just a melee character. It damages everything in the sweeping strike. So he has a long range attack that can catch people unawares. And then he has a flame weapon, which is great. He has great strength, so they deal immense damage there. That's a really good trait to have. Fire bombs and fire mines. So this guy right here is a very, very good overlord. He's not perfect. If he had one more immunity, that would be fantastic. If he had one more thing here, immune to execution, that would be just tremendously powerful, but he doesn't. He does have one mortal weakness, but that's terrified of ghouls. And if he's in a throne room, there probably isn't going to be an opportunity to summon ghouls. There's not going to be them intrinsically inside, and you have to actually detonate a fire pit. There's various ways that players can summon them, but not in a throne room during a castle siege fight. At least not that I'm aware of, and if there is, well, then, you know, a player could exploit this, but it's not going to be easy. So this isn't as much of a mortal weakness as it appears to be. He has a fear of poison, but, you know, that's not every player is going to have that in their toolkit, though dazed by poison is a weakness. So if I could change one thing or two things, I would get rid of the dazed by poison, and I would give him immune to execution, but he is a very good guy. He's on the right track. This is the type of thing that you want to look for, this kind of balanced stats with 4 immunities. To wrap things up, I'm going to do my pass at kind of cliff notes, or the consolidated version of the good and the bad, only the very important stuff. There are, of course, other talents in the game that you can look for or avoid. There's a lot of different combinations, and there's a ton of them, actually. That's why I'm just going to do the ones that I feel are very important. We have, on the very good side of things, the big green, very good. These are things you absolutely want. Damage type immunities. Poison, fire, curse, frost. Any combination of those. Frost being arguably the most important there. Execution immunity, and if not an immunity to it, then maybe enraged by it. So an execution immunity or enraged trait of any kind. Beast immunity or enrage, the same thing. If you're enraged by various beast types, you don't necessarily have to be immune to all of them, but beast immunity is very, very good, especially for overlords. Arrow proof, if you don't have that, you can be cheesed. The fights are very easy if they're not arrow proof. And then some further, you know, good talents or traits. There's no chance, which gives a player, as the name would suggest, no chance when they go down. Thick skin, which gives them a lot more health, very useful for overlords. Great strength as well, which gives greatly increased damage. That's very helpful too. So for overlords, you want at least 4 immunities. Try and get beast immunity, arrow proof, and frost immunity. Maybe execution immunity as well, but any combination of the rest of them is going to be great. Now moving on, we have the very bad column. For this, we have beast fodder. You do not want this on anyone. The fight can be cheesed if they are not immune to beasts, or at least enraged by beasts. Soft-headed, that makes the fight super easy because they can just spam range attacks. You don't want anything in your fortress defending your castles that is soft-headed. Any mortal vulnerability to anything. For overlords, it's okay to have Morgai flies, maybe even ghouls, but mortal vulnerabilities are just that. They're mortally bad. You don't want them on anything. Weaknesses to damage types. Anything that's weak to poison, fire, curse, or frost. Sometimes you can get away with it, but most of the time, I would say avoid anything with damage type weaknesses, and then terrified of anything. For overlords, stealth and Morgai flies are okay. You know, you can't really have a lot of stealth encounters when you're in that throne room. So just for overlords, stealth is not an issue. Morgai flies as well. There's not going to be those nests. But if they're terrified of anything, they will become, you know, capable of being one-shotted by anything, any other attack. So you don't want terrified at all. And that's about it. There's going to be some other traits that you can look into, but I think I'll wrap it up there. That's kind of my overview on how to farm for, you know, captains for your squad and what to look for. So I'm going to end it there. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. There's things like the forums. There's a whole bunch of different ways to support, a whole bunch of different ways to get integrated. So check it out if you're interested. And as always, have a nice night.